We see the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my arms. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my arms. You are a part of me. You are the face of Moms are also the face of God, if there ever was one. Right?
And now, we are so blessed to have Norma as our minister. So let's give it up to Reverend Norma.
Hi, everybody. I know you don't like it when I ask you to move because you kind of choose your spot and you settle in there, but because there's a smaller number of us today, it would just feel cozier and more communicative if you moved up right in here.
Great.
Those on the sides are okay, but just come up closer. Thank you. Thank you.
What a great conversation.
You did it. Oh. Well, by way of creating our sacred space together, one of the things that we like to do here is honor the earth-based traditions. And the earth-based traditions all over the planet, they recognize that things are held in place by what we here at Unity call a divine order. But in the earth-centered traditions, they talk about the 4 seasons, and the cross-quarter holidays. That means 8 positions as the seasons turn that hold us. And also that there are 4 beings that they actually talk about as the guardians of the gates of the east, south, the west, and the north. So all the different traditions are trying to let us know that this world is held in place by a divine order. And when we go through a week like this past week, we sometimes wonder about it as things start feeling frayed at the edges and how, like T.S. Eliot said, and the center does not hold during difficult times. It feels like, where is the center? What is holding us here? But we come into a group like this to remember that we are held and that we hold one another. But we need to remind each other that there is a center, and it goes right through us, right through our heart, our axis mundi. We are, that word axis mundi. It's an old alchemical word that means that we are the axis of the world. We're like a tree that's standing here, that the ancient mystics always painted the human standing like this, that the energies of heaven and earth go through us and meet in our center. So the center is here. And the center is when we gather together. We can feel that, can't we? The strengthening of that. So what I'd like you to do is stand with me and we will honor the 4 directions and acknowledge that we are held. And we're lucky in being here at the Havra to be able to look at this beautiful stained glass window in the direction of the east, which is the diagram of the Kabbalah. And you see the 6-pointed star in the center with the green circle in the center. That is representing our human hearts, right in the middle. The heaven and the earth being connected. We've had Rabbi David here talking to us at times about the meaning of it. We should have him come again do that. But here we are looking at the east through this remembrance of the sacred geometry by which we are held here. And great guardians of the gates of the east, we welcome you. Come and be with us, high-flying eagle, who sees from God's perspective, that top circle up there. There's a perspective that we want to align with, a higher perspective. Take our minds there. Help us to see from a God's eye view, and thereby be redeemed. Come to us, great guardians of the east. Be with us now. And let's all say at the end, Aho, Aho. And then we turn to the south. O great guardians of the gates of the south, we recognize the power of fire and spirit and inspiration, and our child minds that can see things up close, like the snake crawling through the grass or the tiny mouse. Help us to be innocent in that way and to be open to a fresh mindset of seeing things up close and become humble. Come to us now, great guardians of the south. Aho. Aho. And now we turn to the back that's facing west. We welcome you, great guardians of the gates of the west, the powers of the depths, deep understanding, deep unconscious, deep ocean depths, deep emotions. We welcome you. We welcome today vulnerability. Our human path is inseparable from vulnerability. And in the west, also we have wisdom, the wisdom of the black bear, of the whales and dolphins and the sea creatures of the deep. Come and be with us now, wisdom of this planet. Aho. Aho. And then we turn to the north. In the north we have the great mountains, so spread your legs out apart a little bit and feel our unity with the great mountains of the north. We welcome you, powers of the north, ancient of days, birth, death, rebirth, over and over again. The cycles of time move through us, and we somehow mysteriously move through the ages, rebirth after rebirth. In this moment, we ask for the ancestors to come and be with us today, to help us, and the future generations come and be with us today. Help our hearts to know the way. Heal this planet. Come and be with us now, great powers of the north. Aho. Aho. Amen. Let's turn toward the center now. Put your hands on your own heart. You can put them on your solar plexus too. Yes, just feel your axis Mundi. We thank each of you for coming to be here today because we are strengthened by one another. Just feel your heart beating right now, and we're so thankful for these human incarnations right now at this time on earth, because we each have a great purpose here. We each have something very special every day that we're called upon to do and to be. So we're thankful for these human bodies. We ask you, Great Spirit, that we may step into alignment with you right now, today, that we may feel the flow of your energy and strength and determination through us. In your name we pray, Aho. Amen. Welcome everybody, and give a namaste or a handshake or a hello to the people here. Introducing yourself, saying your name, saying, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for being here. We're so thankful for this day, and you might want to remain standing because we have a great song. It comes to us from Karen Drucker through Cerise, and it's called Thank You for This Day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. You can sit down again and start to hear the words of it, but then you're probably going to want to stand up and get involved.
Oh, yeah. So Norma shared this song with me. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. And it struck me that in the Jewish tradition, and I'm sure I was thinking many wisdom traditions, that's the first prayer that we say when we wake up. In Hebrew, it's Moda Ani, I'm grateful before you. I'm sure it's something in a million other languages, right? Thank you for this day. As we sleep and our souls go wandering around, who knows what, we awaken and we have the gift of this day. So we say thank you. So I want to just hear what some of you are feeling thankful for today so we can sing it out. What do you think? Blue sky. Oh, autumn skies. Okay, good. So we got some skies. What else are you feeling thankful for today? Friendship.
Colorful trees.
Trees, yeah.
Unity.
Unity. Okay, good. We'll start there. So you'll hear how it goes. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Sing it. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. And we say, this healing, this healing, this healing day. Sing it. This healing, this healing, this healing day. Thank you for this sky, Spirit. Thank you for this sky. Thank you for this sky, Spirit. Thank you for this sky. This clear blue, this clear blue, this clear blue sky. This clear blue, this clear blue, this clear blue sky. Thank you for these friends, Spirit. Thank you for these friends. Thank you for these friends, Spirit. Thank you for these friends. These loving, these loving, these loving friends. These loving, these loving, these loving friends. Yes. Thank you for these trees, Spirit. Thank you for these trees. Thank you for these trees, Spirit. Thank you for these trees. These vibrant, these vibrant, these vibrant trees. These vibrant, these vibrant, these vibrant trees. Thank you for these hands, Spirit. Thank you for these hands. Thank you for these hands, Spirit. Thank you for these hands. These helping, these helping, these helping hands. These helping, these helping, these helping hands. I think you need to stand up, don't you? I see y'all sitting there thinking, yeah, I could stand up. I could feel my feet on the ground. Yes. Yes. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing. Okay, got one more. Thank you for this breath, Spirit. Thank you for this breath. Thank you for this breath, Spirit. Thank you for this breath. This cleansing, this cleansing, this cleansing breath. Take a big one. This cleansing, this cleansing, this cleansing breath. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day.
In the spirit of that deep breath and our head to ground while we're here, I'd like to start with a meditation. We've been talking about, last week we talked about solitude and how we're able to go into solitude because we have community. Because if you go into solitude when you're all alone, it's just about loneliness. So, we can go into solitude during the week and at different points because we know we have loving community and friends that hold us. And so today we're going to take a moment here to go into our inner self and our solitude while we're here, held by this loving container. And, when you go into the depths, things can come up, sad feelings or happy feelings or all kinds of feelings, but in meditation, what we try to do is bring our minds to a focus of breath. I know many of you do these practices of breathing and focusing your mind on your breath. So that's what I'd like you to do in these moments that we're going to take in silence, is bring your mind to focus on your breathing. And one of the ways to do that is you can count your breaths in 1, out 2, in 3, out 4, all the way up to 10. And see if you can get to 10 in that focused way. Sometimes your mind will wander off by number 5, and then you'll go, oh, I never got to 10. And just bring your mind back to starting over again. And try to focus on your breath. And if you can get to 10, then keep going to 20. So another way to focus is just to feel the breath come over your top lip. See if you can be aware of it coming in. Breath over your lip, in and out. Another way to focus on the breath is feel it in your abdomen. You can feel your abdomen rising and falling. So these are just suggestions to help you as we go into this time, these moments of silence. And I would like to dedicate them to all the people that were wounded, killed last Sunday evening in Las Vegas, to their healing, to the peaceful passage of the souls, to the healing of the city of Las Vegas, and to the healing of our nation. So we dedicate this work to the healing of sentient beings. So with a deep breath, feel your hips on the chair. Sense your breath, feel your breath in your abdomen as it brings you into this calm, this peaceful place that we're so blessed to have and inhabit right now. Breathing deeply, focus on our breath, and dedicate these next few minutes to healing. Great Spirit, you who go by many names, great mystery beyond our knowing, beyond our understanding. We thank you that somehow you do care for us, love us. beckon us to a deeper connection with love while we're here on planet Earth. So today, once more, we dedicate ourselves to stepping away from our fears and into the great ocean of love, into the truth of love, into trust, into trusting that this universe is a friendly place. We bring our human minds and our human attention to trust today, to trusting love. Because we know that as we focus our minds and our hearts, great things are accomplished. So help us as we gather here today to step more fully into faith and trust in your divine order, in a love that does rule this whole universe, and that planet Earth is held by your embrace, and that healing beyond our wildest imagination is taking place. Thank you for letting us be part of it. We bring ourselves fully present here today to participate in this healing ceremony. Thank you, beloved. So happy to be here. Uh-huh. Well, it's been a hard and sad week for me, waking up last Monday morning to hear of that terrible mass shooting in Las Vegas. All week I've been on the edge of tears. The grief, even at a distance, has felt kind of overwhelming. It's been vulnerable for me in several ways also, because my mom went into hospital and I'm far away from her. She's out now and doing a little bit better. My doggy Monk has been in the animal hospital twice, and he's not doing so well. And he's 20 years old, you know, such a member of my family. And got lots of identity shifts going on. So I've got my individual vulnerabilities, as you all do, too, in the midst of feeling this massive group vulnerability. Acts of terrorism like this that happen make us feel vulnerable, and that's what they're meant to do. They're done to make us feel afraid and to stop assembling, to stop coming together in big groups, because they know that coming together is our strength. You know, and being happy and joyful, like at a music festival, is an enlivening thing. So all of us are deeply affected by what happened in Las Vegas. Like we've said often, when the butterfly wing flutters in Brazil, it affects the weather in China. So we feel everything on a deep level, even if you never watch the news. The people of Las Vegas, Nevada came out in droves to help one another by giving blood, standing in long lines in the hot sun, and then others bringing them bottles of water and food, and a city in great mourning, a whole nation in grief and dismay at gun violence. In Nevada on Monday evening, there was a huge vigil for Vegas, they called it, where all the different churches and spiritual groups, synagogues, and of all faiths came together. And before that, many of the people had spent all day at the convention center in Las Vegas, where the people were all brought. And among them were several pastors. One of them was Pastor Robin Garcia. And as this news person spoke to her, they said she was obviously shaken. And she said, 4 of the people that I assisted had loved ones die in their arms. Let me tell you one of their stories. Heather Melton, she was a surgeon visiting from Tennessee to Las Vegas, and her husband, Sonny, they both started running when the gunshots started being fired, and he was right behind her, but he got struck, and his body fell on top of hers. And she was crying and praying for him, and she realized that him being on top of her was protecting her. And he died there in her arms. And as she told us, she kept breaking down in tears and saying, "He saved my life." Mountain was among many other survivors tending to the wounded loved ones who were ordered to leave the scene, Garcia said. So Heather had no idea what happened to her husband's body, and this is what happened to all of the people. They had to leave the scene and leave their loved ones there. So by late Monday afternoon, they were still not able to go back, and they weren't able to go to their hotel rooms either. The hotels were keeping them out of their hotel rooms. So what a vulnerable position to be in. Such utter vulnerability experienced by the people there. I noticed this week that lots of ministers were entitling their sermons, "Where is God in a situation like this?" And I'm sure they're going to say something like, God's right here with us, vulnerable with us. Emmanuel means God is not far off. God is here. Great Spirit in our midst, like Elie Wiesel, who went through the concentration camp, said he didn't lose his faith. He gained more faith through all of that because God is with us. Like we've got a mysterious thing going on in this universe that Great Spirit, the Creator, has chosen to create us humans and to go through whatever this is that we're doing here to learn these lessons. You know, the Spirit of the universe is going through these lessons with us. Imagine driving down the Las Vegas Strip and seeing the billboards have been taken over by these huge signs that used to be dancing girls. Now they're saying, "Pray for Las Vegas. Pray for our city. Pray for the survivors," flashing in the night sky. Pray. Pray. There's lots of things to pray for today. We need to pray for the law enforcement, the first responders, the medical community as they deal with the healing from what they experienced that night. Those who were not trained in combat medicine were not prepared for what they encountered. Pray for the victims' funds, that there will be plenty of money flowing in to help them. Pray for the people of Las Vegas so that they will turn to Spirit and to spiritual community as their refuge and strength, their ever-present help in trouble. All over our nation, churches, synagogues, mosques, all kinds of meditation, people are gathering today to pray that the gun laws be changed. And I know that's a controversial subject, but we've got to address it. But all of us can agree to pray for all of these things throughout our days and throughout this week. So let's just pause right now to say a short prayer together. And this prayer was prayed by a rabbi in Baltimore. Dear universal presence of love, we have to lean on you. You are one who knows sorrow. You are acquainted with grief. And in this time of loss, we need you to comfort us. In our fear, bring peace. In our anger, point us to you, God of justice. Embrace us, Holy Spirit, with your love. For those enduring the loss of life, surround them with your loving presence. Let those hurting sense and know you, the God of hope. For those of us mourning, help us to come closer to you, not turn away. Please, please shine your light of love into this dark time and help us embody your love and your grace and your mercy and your compassion. We need you to show us the way. Great lover of our souls, you are our hope for humanity's evolution. You that dwell within us, give us courage to remain faithful. In your abundant mercy and grace, hear our prayer. Let's say together, hear our prayer. Hear our prayer. Amen. Well, vulnerability is the human thing that we have to deal with. It's at the core of all of our emotions and feelings. To be alive is to feel, is to be vulnerable, right? So to think that vulnerability is weakness is to believe that feeling is weakness. And that's just not so. We can't foreclose on our emotional life out of fear that the costs will be too high for us to feel things. We've got to feel. Vulnerability is what makes us human. So this week I was walking outside, comforting myself by looking at the beautiful leaves in the park, and I like to take pictures of them and just enjoy the blazing glory of the leaves. And I thought of that old Nat King Cole song, Autumn Leaves. So wonderful Cerise and Heather, they can do anything I think of, so they're going to sing that wonderful song for us, Autumn Leaves. And it's a very poignant song, about the passing of people and loving deeply and feeling deeply and realizing that things are impermanent too, and yet so beautiful, so beautiful.
Drift by my window, the sunburned leaves of red and gold. I see your lips, the summer kisses, the sunburned hands I used to know. Since you went away, the days grow long, and soon I'll hear a winter song. But I'll miss you most of all, my darling, when autumn leaves start to fall. Since you went away, the days grow long, and soon I hear a winter song. But I miss you most of all, my darling, when autumn leaves start to fall. When autumn leaves start to fall. When autumn leaves start to fall.
That was so beautiful. Nostalgia, it comes to us in the autumn time, doesn't it? And it's a good thing, nostalgia. To feel into those that have passed, that we love, whether they've passed out of our lives just by we're no longer around them, or they've actually died and gone to the other side. To to remember them is good in the autumn. We're coming up to the time of the Day of the Dead that's celebrated in Mexico in such a big way. We always do a big Day of the Dead ceremony here too, but it feels like the whole month of October is leading up to that. The veils start to thin, and we're able to remember. So it's a time of holding sacred our vulnerability and our connection to the other dimensions. There's another beautiful song that Cerise suggested for today. It's called Teach Us to Treasure Each Day, and it's from the Hebrew, from Psalm 90. And I looked up Psalm 90 because I wanted to be reminded about what it was, and I'm having Karen come and read it. And it's not just a cheerful, uplifting psalm, like many of them are. Many of them are encouraging and full of joy and praise. But this one is nostalgic and thinking about the shortness of human life and the mystery of it all. So those psalms are in there too. In all different scriptures from around the world, there are things that call us to attention and call us to awareness of impermanence. So thank you, Karen, for reading. Want to use this? Psalm 90. This is an excerpt from it.
Are we on, right? When I came in this morning and she handed this to me and I looked over it, I said, wow, this is heavy. And then the minute she mentioned Las Vegas, I knew exactly why she had chosen this song. Lord, you have been our dwelling place throughout all generations. Before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the whole world, from everlasting to everlasting. You are God. You turn people back to dust, saying, return to dust, you mortals. 1,000 years in your sight are like a day that has just gone by, or like a watch in the night. You sweep people away in the sleep of death. They are like the new grass in the morning. In the morning it springs up new, but by evening it is dry and withered. Our days may come to 70 years or 80 if our strength endures, yet the best of them are but trouble and sorrow, for they quickly pass and we fly away. If only we knew the power of your anger. Your wrath is as great as the fear that is your due. Teach us to treasure each day, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Teach us to treasure each day, that we may gain a heart of wisdom.
So will you sing that with me? We'll sing, teach us to treasure each day, that we may open our hearts to your wisdom. Oh, teach us to treasure each day. That we may Teach us to treasure each day. Teach us to treasure each day. That we may open our hearts to your wisdom. Oh, teach us to treasure each day. That we may open our hearts to your wisdom. Oh, teach us to treasure each day.
As you are seated, think about one way that you're going to treasure your day more than today. It's one way that you can treasure people around you, your life. Let's just dedicate ourselves right now in our silent moment with our own heart. How am I going to treasure each day a little bit more? The next reading I want to read you is from Chief Seattle. You know who Chief Seattle was? Yes, he lived in this part of the country, and he spoke amazing words as white people were coming in and all the native people were being killed, genocided. He called us to treasure each day. He tried to communicate to everyone, even as difficult things were happening, that there's a perspective to take on it all. So he said, remember, we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We only borrow it from our children. And the earth doesn't even belong to humans. Humans belong to the earth. Humans need to know that all things are connected like the blood that unites us all. Man didn't weave the web of life. He's merely a strand in it all. Whatever he does to the web, he does to himself. So will you teach your children what we've taught our children? That the earth is our mother. What befalls the earth befalls all the sons and daughters of the earth. One thing we know, our God is also your God. There really is only one God. The earth is precious to Great Spirit, and to harm the earth is to heap contempt on its Creator. There is no death, only a change of worlds. We are all children of Great Spirit. We are all spirits ourselves. Our planet is in great trouble, and if we keep carrying old grudges and do not work together, we may all die. So those are compelling and difficult words of Chief Seattle, too, kind of like Moses. It was Moses who was speaking those words in the Psalm. You know, as we get older, Moses getting older and Chief Seattle getting older, we have seen a lot of hard things come and go on planet Earth. And most of the time here at Unity, we talk very positively and we keep a very positive attitude, which I will get through to that today. But it's okay to feel, too, you know, to feel the depths of what is happening here on planet Earth and the mystery of it, and wanting to be of use. Wanting to be of service as we're here. So we thank Chief Seattle and all Indigenous people to this place. First Nations people, call them, who held the spiritual perspective of our oneness through it all. I'm so thankful for White Buffalo Stands, a native Cheyenne man who's come to lead sweat lodges for us up at the Circle of Trust, and next time he's here I'll invite you again to join us up there. But we're so blessed to have these teachings, these ancient native indigenous teachings of this place that are carried forth and still alive and brought through to us by the faithfulness of keeping a perspective through hard things, right? We're thankful for this synagogue and for the Jewish people who've kept a perspective through hard things of a loving God. We're thankful for each of our own ancestors. Just think about them right now, ones who brought you here, who kept a perspective through hard things, and they believed in life enough to bring forth you, to bring new life out of love onto the planet. So we're so thankful to be here. There's another song that we'd like to do for you called Narrow Bridge. Narrow Bridge. Tell us something about this song as you bring it, Cerise.
These are the words of a great Hasidic rabbi, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. And Rabbi Nachman of Breslov was a great mystic. So some of his visions came late in the night, meditating, praying all night long. And in these words he's saying, the entire world is just a narrow bridge. But the most important thing is not to be overwhelmed by fear. Rabbi Nachman taught that you should go out into the woods or into nature for an hour every day and cry and sing and weep before God and get it all out. And the other 23 hours of your day you should practice being extremely joyful so as to uplift your community. But what's interesting is that he himself suffered from severe depression, which is perhaps what gave him such a deep insight into the need to bring joy around each other. So we're going to sing this song, All the World is Just a Narrow Bridge, just a narrow bridge. All the world is just a narrow bridge. But above all, do not fear at all. All the world is just a narrow bridge, just a narrow bridge, just a narrow bridge. All the world is just a narrow bridge, just a narrow bridge. Should we sing that? All the world is just a narrow bridge, just a narrow bridge, just a narrow bridge. All the world is just a narrow bridge, just a narrow bridge. Now we're going to say, but above all, do not fear at all. Sounds like this. And above all, do not fear at all. And above all, do not fear at all. just a narrow bridge. It's just a narrow bridge. All this world is just a narrow bridge. Just a narrow bridge.
It's comforting to hear these ancient songs and ancient words, isn't it, of humans that have been vulnerable through the ages. Like we're saying, to be alive is to be vulnerable. And yet our cultural norms in our society have been in favor of extreme individualism and self-reliance, right? That can push us to aim for a false sense of invincibility. It can drain our courage, though, both for living and accepting love. Cultivating this false sense of invincibility can even lead to feeling ashamed when we feel vulnerable. It can rob us of a sense of belonging and connection that are at the center of what it means to be human. A famous minister in New York City who I always admired, Forrest Church. Have you ever heard of him? He was the minister at Riverside Church in New York City, big church there, and he got pancreatic cancer. And I knew about it. I was, oh no, he's young. He's got so much to give yet, you know. And during that time, he wrote that just being human is like we're all walking on a trapdoor, and we know it's going to be sprung sometime, and then poof, we'll disappear. And kind of like that, you know. I mean, he had a lot of wonderful hope to give to people, encouragement, but he didn't shy away from vulnerability, and he talked about his process with the pancreatic cancer, and he was vulnerable in a way that affected the whole world as a minister, you know, for him not to try to hide it with positivism or, you know, like a false hope. He knew he was dying, and he was with it, and he shared his vulnerability. So amazing and powerful. And then this year I got to hear David Whyte speak. You know, David Whyte, the great Irish poet, and he was best friends with John O'Donohue. And, you know, John O'Donohue, he's an Irish Catholic priest who retired from being a priest and became this amazing poet and theologian. And both of them have visited here. And the Irish people, so much comes from the heart, you know. Their words really come from the heart. And David Whyte, in his mourning over John O'Donohue's quick passing, age 50, he just left, wrote this whole book of poetry and prose called Consolations that just came out. And this is what David said about his feeling of vulnerability after John O'Donohue died. Vulnerability is not a weakness, a passing indisposition, or something we can arrange to do without. Vulnerability is not even a choice. Vulnerability is the underlying, ever-present, and abiding undercurrent of our natural state. To run from vulnerability is to run from the essence of our nature. The attempt to be invulnerable is the vain attempt to be something we're not, and most especially to close off understanding of the grief of others. More seriously, refusing our vulnerability, we refuse the help needed at every turn of our existence, and we immobilize the essential title and conversational foundations of our identity. Isn't that beautiful? This word so beautifully. It says the only choice we have as we mature is how we inhabit our vulnerability. And that's what we're talking about here today. How we become larger and more courageous and more compassionate through our intimacy with disappearance. How our choice is to inhabit vulnerability as citizens of loss, robustly and fully, or we can do it as misers and complainers, reluctant and fearful. It's our choice. But we are always at the gates of existence. trying to complete our journey here, risking ourselves, walking through the doors that present themselves to us. Thank you, David White, for encouraging that. And as I read that last part, they're walking through the doors that present themselves. This week I had a dream that Jean Houston, who I admire and got to talk with a couple weeks ago, she was coming to me in the dream, and she, like, sometimes do you dream of beings that you admire, or like, you know, people that you put on a pedestal, or avatar beings, you know, people come to us in our dreams to encourage us. So she came to me in my dream and she showed me a white door, and the door was closed, and she was telling me that it was my time to open this door. And it seemed to be a door into a great golden light. So it was very encouraging, the dream was. And there are many ways that we try to cope with our vulnerability, and some of them are like this, you know, getting encouraging thoughts from one another, encouraging feelings, encouraging dreams. Well, I was an oldest child growing up. Now, you've probably heard about the oldest sibling syndrome, you know, where when we're under stress, we become over-functioning. Something very closely related to perfectionism and know-it-allism. If any of you are older children, you know that we each have our ways of being with vulnerability, no matter what age you are in your family. In anxious situations, some of us become over-functioners like that, and others of us just completely withdraw. But we all have our ways of coping in vulnerability. Sometimes in our culture, we're really encouraged to numb out. You know, like very readily, pills are offered to us by doctors, or street drugs, or alcohol, or lots of ways to numb, not to mention indulgence in our TV shows, or, you know, all the ways that we can distract. It's okay. You know, we've got great compassion for all of these things that we reach for to numb out, because it's hard to feel vulnerable. It hurts. It's pain. A friend of mine who's a playwright once had one of his characters, after having just lost her family in a car wreck, say in this play, "I don't have to cry now. I can cry tomorrow, or next week, or next month, or next year, because it's never going to stop. It's never going to stop hurting." So trying to put off feeling is one of our familiar techniques when something is hurting us. But the character was right about one thing. It never really does stop hurting completely. We just learn to carry on, don't we? And I think maybe that's as it should be, because for me, and I think like for Chief Seattle, and you know, wisdom is about carrying the ones who have suffered and who we miss with us. Our culture doesn't do that enough, you know, but in Japan, when somebody dies, for example, they light a candle every day for 33 days, and then every 49 days throughout 3 years, and then after 3 years, once a year on the on the death anniversary for 33 years. So there's much more that we could do ceremonially and ritually to remember. As counselors and teachers and parents, we need to help teach our young ones to be able both to protect themselves from being overly vulnerable, but also not just to build walls, but to break down the walls and to feel their vulnerability and to be able to have human compassion and listening to one another. So I'm so thankful for nonviolent communication, compassionate listening, things like that are being taught and that we're learning about. Because we are gaining strength, I think, as these things happen. And if we do this, if we learn nonviolent communication and start opening up about our vulnerabilities with one another, maybe instead of just withdrawing when something difficult happens, or oversharing, which sometimes happens too. We were talking the other night about Facebook, you know, now sometimes we overshare on Facebook, or sometimes we get too vulnerable in the wrong way. You know, there's a balance to how to be vulnerable in a good way that shares in a way that people can really meet you and healing can take place. So it's a delicate learning about sharing our vulnerability. But as we do this, I think that we create spaces in life where our sorrows and our aching joys can be shared and even sung into the rafters held by beloved community. Like we can be together in a strange glory and joy of our union. In the Unity spiritual path, there are teachings that help us with this task, and I just want to talk about some positive things here briefly now. I heard the phrase from the Inner Light Ministries and Santa Cruz minister. She said, "My trust goes before me. My trust goes out before me." And she was saying that so often we speak of spiritual qualities as reactionary, like I love you because I feel so connected with you, or I'm grateful because this wonderful thing happened, or I'm devastated because these terrible things happened. But the Unity teaching is really to explore the question about how does it change things if we start off with the spiritual qualities and then they determine our perspective. Let me go on about this to help explain it. It's not really a spiritual practice, in other words, to say, let me see if something good happens and then I will see if I'm grateful. No, we're really supposed to start off when we get up in the morning and say, thank you for this day, Spirit. Start off in this attitude of gratefulness, and then that shapes our perspective through the day. If you start off with love, then you impact whatever experience comes your way during the day. If you start off with trust, then you see more things from a trusting perspective. Lots of times we might go around asking, well, why should I trust? What can we really trust? Can we trust the politicians? Can we trust the government? Can we trust the leaders? Who can we trust? And we look out over all of these different things and we wonder, is there anything solid enough for me to put my foot down on and trust? Well, when someone asked me once, Reverend Norma, what or who do you trust? I said, well, I trust people to be people, and I trust God to be God. And when I don't mix up those two, then I'm fine. Because people will be whatever people are. There are people who are kind, and there are those who are messy or cruel and ungrateful or even evil. And you're going to find that whole combination anywhere. Even in the most religious settings, even in politics, everywhere we find all kinds of people, and we should stop being surprised at that. I have. There's no place that you can go to where there are only good people. But did you see that TV show lately called The Good Place? Has anybody watched it? You got to watch it. It's really, really funny. But it's about this woman who died and went to the good place. And it's where only supposedly the good people are. But she realizes that she wasn't one of the good people. And that somehow she got there by mistake. And then she proceeds to kind of wreck heaven. But it all comes through to a really good place. It's kind of like that on planet Earth, you know? It's like we try to make these categories, like we're the good people, those are the bad people, and they shouldn't mix, but it's really not like that. The problem is just that when we try to make people our God, that's when we get into trouble. You'll be messed up if you put people on a pedestal where they don't belong. When we allow people to determine our possibility of consciousness, our potential, our sense of self-worth, we give that to people? No, that should not be in other people's hands. Don't make people God. Don't make your children God. Don't make your relationship God. Don't make God out of anything but God. And you can call God whatever you want. God doesn't care. God doesn't care. If you call God Jesus or Buddha or Allah or Jehovah or Sekhmet or Kali, just let God be God and thereby accept that humans will be humans. When we say that we trust God, we've seen that we can trust that there is a self-organizing principle in the universe, like I was talking about when we did the 4 directions. When I watch the autumn leaves, it's reminding me of that. There is a self-organizing principle going on here. There's a letting go time. There's a leaving time. When I went to visit the great jungles of the Amazon, we came down from the Bolivia side into that western end of the Amazon, and It's unimaginable how vast the Amazon jungles are, and we hear the sad things about them being cut down, but still, nature is amazing and huge and real and an active power on this planet. And when you visit some place like the Amazon jungle, you realize, like Chief Seattle was saying, that we humans are just a tiny part of the thread of it all, and that we are the last ones to come here, and we could be the first ones to go. We humans have got to get with the program, and we know that. And yet there's something really smart on planet Earth, really wise on planet Earth. And that's what we're here to experience, the medicine ways, the deep ways that nature on planet Earth is communicating to us something really wise, that is a self-organizing system, and it happens in our own lives too. I got to hear Maya Angelou speak in the Bay Area once, and she was so particular with her language and how she stayed with the vibrations emanating from her. You could just feel that she trusted her heart as each word came out from her voice. And Deborah Johnson, pastor of Inner Light Ministries, is another black woman orator who's like that too. She said that Spirit is saying this to us about trust. Trust is where your embrace encompasses my divine order. Beautifully put. Trust is where your embrace encompasses my divine order. So we're talking today about how do we trust when all these things happen and that there is a divine order. Well, just think about this. There's an action that we have to take. Trust is where our embrace will encompass God's divine order. How do we make the gap get smaller between how we typically live our lives and jump into a lot of fears and this kind of idea of embracing divine order? She goes on to say, divine order is when your sense of what is right merges with my infinite wisdom. Divine order is when your sense of what is right merges with my infinite wisdom. So basically she's giving us 3 actions that we need to do: yield, merge, and encompass. So this is what I want to speak briefly to have you go away with this. Yield. When you come to a yield sign, when you're merging into traffic, you pause and you look over your shoulder and you notice what's going on around you. And you say, I'm pausing. I'm not just assuming that I can pound in here and just have my way. So the first thing is we've got to yield more. We've got to stop, pay attention, and yield so that we can merge with God's will. You can put a boat in water anytime, but you have to pay attention to the weather and the waves so that when you put the boat into the water, it doesn't sink, that it can go smoothly. We have to yield. Merge. When you merge gently with something, when you go into something, you're paying attention and doing to it as it is doing, like the boat smoothly entering the water. You step into it. But lots of times we're stepping onto something, like onto the environment. We don't even watch our footsteps. We're dominating it. When we step onto something, we're not open to a conversation with it. We're not open to our vulnerable impact. So just think about that in our relationships with one another. There was this YouTube video that Nisha showed me this week that's so funny because it was a couple, young couple, speaking to each other in English, in this vibratory language that we use. But they weren't saying real English words. They were just speaking gibberish. But so that they did it so that we could feel the impact of how we typically talk to one another. And it was very harsh and very dominating and very mean. And they made that video just to show us, hey, humans who speak English especially, like, we're not entering in with yielding and merging. We're coming at things in an abrasive and disrespectful way. So we bring our attitudes and our vibrational frequency to shape what's going on around us. I've been hearing a lot about Dr. Joe Dispenza lately. Have some of you been tuning into him? Epigenetics, and he says literally every time we think that there are chemicals being released in our brains, and those chemicals are releasing other chemicals. So he's trying to get us to realize that we are creating reality in every moment. He says you may have a tumor that's been in your body for 2 years, but it's not the same tumor that was there 2 years ago. It's the tumor of today. So whatever is happening today, we are creating it. And that's what he's trying to get across, that we create whatever is happening today with our thoughts of today, and we can uncreate it. And I had this dream that at a certain point, the beings from the other dimensions are going to be visible to us, and they're going to be saying to us, things can change in the twinkling of an eye. We get so worried about planet Earth and all of the difficulties, and we can't imagine how they're going to change. But hey, things can change in the twinkling of an eye. Tumors can disappear. Obstacles can be done away with, and we don't really understand the great mystery or how God, Great Spirit, can do it. But healing can take place. Change is possible. If we wake up with the same thoughts that we had yesterday, we're giving our mind over to yesterday, and we're not being present today. We're not yielding to this moment. We're not being aware. We've got to imagine and give ourselves over and listen to what Spirit is wanting to create today. And it takes being vulnerable to do that, because we get hardened up against our vulnerability. We've got to be vulnerable today. And our emotions will respond to our thoughts as though what we are thinking actually happened. Just one example of this was Reverend Deborah tells us she and her congregation go to do a prison ministry. They've been doing it for 20 years. And so they've known these prisoners through time. And this one guy, he was innocent. He hadn't done what he was in prison for, like happens with many people. And he'd been in there for 17 years, and he was up for parole. And they were all there to support him, and it didn't happen. They went back and forth over several years, 8 times, and his parole got denied. And finally, the last time, they thought it was really going to happen, and then Schwarzenegger repealed all paroles for that year. And so Reverend Deborah said she was so angry. And then this prisoner said to her, "Hey, Rev, it's okay. I guess there's more work for me to do here." And a few years later, she asked him what he meant by that, because she still could hardly stand it that he had said that. And he said, well, what it is that I realized that they were right when they said I wasn't ready to get out, because I still wanted something from them. I still thought they owned my freedom. He said, what I had to learn was that freedom cannot be defined by a few square feet of geometry, like Nelson Mandela said. He said, God knew that before I got out. I had to know what it was to truly be free. Well, he is out now, and out for 5 or 6 years, and he's married and in a master's program, and the irony is he's got perfect credit. Because he didn't get any bad credit, so he bought a house and he's doing just fine. But listen to what I'm saying here. When was he free? And when was he in prison? Where did the freedom really come from? There's a lot to learn from this man, because we don't trust. You hear me? We're in our own prisons out here because we do not trust. We're busy letting stuff all around us define us. But if we really believe and accept there really is divine order, there really is infinite wisdom, it's a hard one, but there really is. There really is an inclusivity that includes everything, and that is bringing it all through to love. We might not see it when we look into the circumstances, but that's why we've got to train our minds to yield, humbly to yield to divine order. If there is a higher part of you that will allow you to embrace or to merge with that divine order, the mind of God, that truly is bigger than anything we can understand, then there is a trust that you can start out with, not after the fact. You start out with a trust that will enable us to create new worlds. And that's what we've got to do right now. So I'm asking you as my spiritual community, we keep talking about this every week really, but to go on this journey of pre-trust. The world needs us to pre-trust. Because with our trust, we're going to bring justice. We're going to bring hope. We're not going to look at the news and wonder what's going to happen. Because with our pre-trust, we're going to make it happen, my spiritual friends. With our trust, let's make it happen. With our trust, let's bring the sanity. With our trust, let's bring the sustainability. With our trust, let's bring the hope to this world. Let's bring everything that we are waiting for by being it first and seeing it first. Are you ready? Yeah. Are you ready to be free?
Yes.
Are you willing to yield and merge and embrace the divine order with me?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Richard's got a wonderful song for us.
She doesn't know what it is, but apparently it's wonderful.
No, it's going to be perfect. She's lots to do it.
I thought of it when you were speaking about Vegas and all that. What a business this earth journey. I wrote this a few years ago. Quit writing. It's called Life. Or Life. Here we are among the stars, old souls at play. Lost some bags along the way. The hard and heavy ones you just as soon ignore. No worries, life will bring 'em to your door. Another day like yesterday, you got a safe copacetic scene, swaddled in your sacrosanct routine. Then life will call you up and ask you out to tea, and who knows what you might find if you just go and see. Got a job in a reliable car, steady as she goes, till karma comes ripping on down the road and punches you right in the nose, and fortune up and knocks you down. Lightning will find its ground, and all them thunderbolts gotta land somewhere. And man, they don't fool around. You go, oh no, what a terrible tragedy. What did I do wrong? Why is this awful thing happening to me? Into work, recycling your trash, you eating GMO-free food. You smile a lot, Lord knows you try to be good. You're jogging to your colonic when the whole damn hillside crashes down, and life turns you inside up and outside. In mud you crawl away, remembered what Grandma'd said. Fire and flood and pain and blood inviting you to dance. Take him in your stride, offering up a precious chance to find the gift wrapped up inside. You go, oh yeah, easy for you to say over there when you're watching it on TV, but over here, there'd be some serious shit, and it keeps on happening to me. Living out here in the wild with 7 billion human beings, there's a treasure trove of exalted wisdom and creativity, and endless, truly spectacular displays of stupidity and cruelty, all laid out for us to see. And we're like, what's all that got to do with me? Here we are among the stars.
Like a couple hundred years from now, I can see there's this book composed of all these psalms, like we read the Psalms of Moses and David, and the Psalms of Richard, and, and people will be reading these words, and it's like, that's the sacred scripture. It's really cool. Fantastic grappling with our lives here. So now's our time to take the offering, and I appreciate your giving generously to this unity ministry, this container, so that we can bring this light of a certain perspective on planet Earth and help people to know that there's a beacon light of hope, and that there are, perspectives in the midst of no matter what happens, perspectives of trust and hope and love. So thank you for giving generously. We've been doing a 4-week call out to you to let us know what you can give. It's like a little pledge drive. And so there's little white pieces of paper that you can put in the offering container that tell what amount you think you could give every week. And if you haven't filled out one of those, thank you for doing that, because that will help us to understand what we can budget to the future. And so, as the offering's being taken, thank you, Cerise, for playing this, one of my favorite songs, and it's by Eva Cassidy. And Eva Cassidy is another one like Forest Church, who is so talented and died young, But I heard on the internet that she is the #1 most popular singer in the world right now, over the Beatles, over everybody. Eva Cassidy. She died quite a while back, I think it was in the 90s, and her songs, she wasn't that famous when she was alive, and her songs have just gone forth to the world. The way she sang them with so much heart is touching everybody around the planet right now. It's amazing. And so you never know what your life is about. She didn't know what her life was about while she was here, but hopefully she can see from the other dimension how much her heart from this. They said she was very humble and very shy, and it was really hard for her to get up on stage. And she never performed in front of huge audiences or anything, just a few here and there. But her songs now are affecting the world and healing the world. So let's have you sit down for a minute and hear the song, and then we'll bless the offering.
her love for to gaze a while upon the fields of barley. In his arms she fell as her hair came down on the fields of corn. Will you stay with me? Will you be my love upon the fields of barley? We'll forget the sun in his jealous sky as we walk in fields of gold. See the west wind move like a lover's soul upon the fields of barley. Feel her body rise when you kiss her mouth among the fields of gold. I never made promises lightly, and there have been some that I've broken, but I swear in the days still left, we'll walk in fields of gold. Sing with me. We'll walk in fields of gold. We'll walk in fields of gold. See the children walk as the sun goes down among the fields of barley. And you tell me I'll always be when we walk in fields of gold. When we walked in fields of gold. When we walked in fields of gold.
Hold our hands together and we say, clap. And we say, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, Spirit, for this divine reciprocity. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So we just get in a big circle at the end, and we end on this note of holding hands with one another and just realizing that we are eternal beings. You don't know really when your life is completing its mission. You might leave quickly and think, oh, I didn't finish something, but you never know. So just all we can do is live with such a treasuring of each day and treasuring of one another and really seeing one another and appreciating one another. So let's just stand in our big circle together. Maybe start it like right in there where you're standing, like come closer to make the circle so it's not so far back.
Oh, we need each other. We really, really need each other. When our hearts break, we need each other. When we're celebrating, we need each other. When we're in silence together, we are so strong. And even more so when we raise our voices in song. And it's not always easy.
Push the circle over that way a little bit so we can connect.
To get into a circle, it's not always easy. may seem easy, but it ain't. Sometimes in our lives we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Please, 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 swallow your pride. If I have things you need to borrow, for no one can fill those of your needs that you don't let show. Lean on me when you're not strong, I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. It won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. You just call me brother, sister, when you need a hand, 'cause we all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'd understand, 'cause we all need somebody to lean on. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for I know that it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. I know it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. What does it feel like to lean on your neighbor? You're so close. Can you lean on each other? Oh, look at those strong beings supporting, holding each other up. I'm wobbling side to side, but I got you right next to me. You're not gonna let me fall. I'm not gonna let you fall. I got you. Oh, we all need someone to lean on. Lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. It won't be long. I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Lean on me.
Have a good week, knowing that you're better for having been here.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.